Okay. Hello, everyone. How is everybody doing in the Google Hangout? We're excited today to have a mother-daughter team joining us for the Google Hangout on Conversations with Angel Investors. And I'm going to pass it on over to Suzanne.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Andrews, and I'm a founding partner of Wing Pact, and I'm really having a lot of fun doing this conversation series with Sylvia from Hera Labs and Hera Fund. And as she mentioned, today's topic is raising the next generation of women angel investors and entrepreneurs. So, this whole conversation series has been about connecting women entrepreneurs and women angel investors and supporting each other and looking at ways that we can build an ecosystem to help everybody. So this topic of looking at the pipeline and upcoming generations is really important for the long-term viability of women's entrepreneurship. So I'm going to I'll briefly say we have Jagruti Bhikha, who is one of my colleagues at Wing Pact. She and I and our other colleagues have recently released the first book about angel investing that's by women and for women. It's called Impact with Wings. We'll remind you of that again at the end of the session. And Jagruti is an angel investor, of course, and also her daughter Priya Bhikha is an angel investor. And so we have both Jagruti and Priya here to talk with us about raising the next generation of women angel investors. So I'll have Jagruti and Priya each introduce themselves and talk about their experience for a little while, and then we'll open the table up for discussion.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Sylvia, for giving this opportunity. And I'm super excited, not only because I get to be part of this conversation, but also because my daughter is here. And we're actually in Hong Kong. We flew from Malaysia yesterday to Hong Kong. And so if you can't hear us or if there is a glitch in our conversation, my apologies in advance. It's about 7 a.m. and sun is rising and with a lot of rain outside. It's very dark and cloudy. A reason I wanted to start with that is that's how the ecosystem right now looks. However, sun is shining through many clouds. So obviously that's where we come in from, Sylvia, Suzanne, and a whole bunch of other women investors and entrepreneurs who are trying to penetrate through dark, cloudy sky and shine on and make this world better. So that's the analogy I'm going to start with. It's a great morning in Hong Kong, and especially because Hong Kong has been my home 10 years ago, and this is the first time I'm coming back to Hong Kong to see the growth and energy here, which really excites me, and the reason I do what I do, which I will explain later, is because of this global perspective which brings into day-to-day work that I do back in Silicon Valley. So I have been an angel investor, I would say about 3.5 years, and we started with the Angel Investment Bootcamp. That's where Suzanne and I started with other co-authors for the book Suzanne mentioned. And my life has changed, I would say, from there for better, more of an awareness around why we should be thinking about being, women entrepreneurs more so, and women investors as well, is because this ecosystem really needs that push. In my opinion, the pendulum has gone so far to the right with so many male entrepreneurs and male angel investors that we need so many of women entrepreneurs and women investors to go on swing the pendulum on the other side in order to create a very collaborative ecosystem that has equal number, if we just go by the number of women investors and women entrepreneurs. So that's my vision. Someone told me once that vision should be something that you're never able to achieve because then it makes you keep going. I thought about that for a while, but my vision, I would say, based on that definition, would be to eradicate gender discrimination or anything gender related when it comes to innovation. Innovation has no gender, so let's start from there. I've been in tech for a while, 25 plus years, and I've seen technology do amazing things. And especially currently, when technology is becoming the center of all business strategies, it's no longer one of the business strategies, but technology is becoming the center of all business strategies. And that's where women are even lacking that sheer number. Women in tech are very, very few compared to not obviously our other counterpart. So I think we need to focus on bringing the awareness for raising not only next generation women entrepreneurs, but how we want the world to look even 2, 3 generations from now, and work backwards. The work that we do now is going to affect not only next generation, but the generation after that, and so on. So I think bringing the young entrepreneurs like you have sitting next to you, Sylvia, from Russia, and my daughter who's sitting next to me is very important. And having this bridge that our generation brings or connects with the next generation is actually extremely important, because right now we don't have as many role models as we need. So how do we create role models is by bridging these 2 generations. So I'm going to pass the conversation to my daughter, Priya Bhikha, who's sitting right next to me. We were actually in Malaysia. We went to a couple of accelerators. Actually, I went by myself. Priya was doing something else. And we kind of connected, had conversations, and we are in Hong Kong for the RISE conference, which we both will be attending. And RISE conference is a conference about investors and entrepreneurs. It has grown tremendously from 500 to over 40,000 in the last 4 years. And now they are a global conference focusing on entrepreneurs and investors. So we're really excited to be here in Hong Kong. So with that, I'm going to pass it to my daughter, Priya, and ask her to introduce herself and talk about her journey so far, which is a very young journey.
Hi everyone, I'm Priya. Thank you for having me here. It's really great to be having this conversation. So I just want to start off by saying I'm really new to the angel investing world, which is kind of exciting for me because I don't really have any preconceived notions about what's going on. So I like to think of it as coming with fresh eyes and not really coming at it with the disadvantage of not knowing everything yet. But I have to say that I'm learning a lot day by day, mostly from my mom about her experiences and the people that she's meeting with. So that's a really great opportunity for me. I became an angel investor, I guess, when I was 22, so not that long ago, maybe a year ago. And I first invested in Attentively, which basically helps nonprofits tap into their network and really grow from there. It feels really, I would say, interesting to be a part of something, even if it's on the sidelines, because you know that you're supporting something that will not only help nonprofits, which is really important, but also kind of grow the conversation around women investors and women entrepreneurs. During my trip in Southeast Asia, I've been traveling for over a month now. I've been to places like Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, etc. And I've been dealing with a lot of women entrepreneurs on a daily basis. But the interesting part is that they're not tech entrepreneurs. These are the women who are creating and selling handicrafts in the markets. They're the ones setting the prices. They're the ones, keeping their families afloat. So it's really interesting to talk to them and kind of see where the similarities are between their world of entrepreneurship and the one that we have in Silicon Valley, based in technology. So I think that, technology is a great place for this to start, but my wish is for it to spread throughout all sectors of, the economy. And this is one of the ones that's most thriving right now. So I really can't wait to see where it goes.
Thanks, Priya. Do you want to also talk about the kind of work you have been doing besides being part of this angel investment, and how your own, the company that you worked with, the founder or general manager of that company, how she has also encouraged you?
Yeah, so I worked with M.M, which is now Cross Channel, for about a year and a half, and my manager's name is Sonia Gonzalez, who is also featured in the Wingpact Impact with Wings book. She's been a great role model to me in terms of equality within the ecosystem, and I think that by watching her work and learning so much from her, I can, personally see the benefit of a great mentor. Um, and I think that that's actually one of the most interesting things in the current ecosystem is that there's kind of a need for that, a need for a mentorship, which I found really helpful to me, not only when I was working at Cross Channel, but also, going through my personal life and my life of investing. It's been really helpful to me.
With that note, I'd like to say that building this global community of women entrepreneurs and women investors in whatever form that may be, like Priya said, she saw women making handicraft, even though it's not a tech as we know in Silicon Valley, it still helps them keep their family afloat, and they are truly also an entrepreneur. I think building this global community of women and having role models is actually more important now than ever before. For similar reasons that I cited earlier, that we got to have enough quantity right now in role models and mentors, so women who are starting out don't feel that they are the only ones. Entrepreneurs' life in general is very lonely. On top of that, if it's a women, we deal with a lot of, I would say, embedded by society, by families, by values, by cultures, norms that we don't necessarily agree with, but we don't know how to not only break them, but come out of them as a winner. I know many women who have imposter syndromes, including myself, right? When I started angel investment, I used to ask myself, why do you think I can, what makes me so special that I can do this? So anything new we start as women, we always have a lot more hesitation or doubt about ourselves. Now, I'm not saying this about everybody, right? I'm saying this about some of the things that keep women entrepreneurs and women investors going full speed ahead. So I think we really, in order to make a dent there positively, we need to have a lot more role models and a lot more mentors. And I'd like to tell you a story about why it's important to have a role model, right? So I'm not sure if you guys know about this, but there's a story around 4-minute mile. The 4-minute mile was long considered impossible, meaning running a mile within 4 minutes. Sportscaster and expert all deemed it outside the realm of human ability. And one of the greatest milers of the era, Australian person John Landy, made numerous high-profile attempts to break the 4-minute mark, but always fell short each time. And his efforts served to reinforce the widely held myth of the times, and for 9 years, all efforts to break the barrier proved unsuccessful. But then came a British medical student named Roger Bannister. He decided that he might be able to break the record and began training. He took his goal and broke it into manageable pieces, a quarter of a mile in less than a minute. Each day during his 30-minute lunch break at Oxford, Bannister worked on running 10 consecutive 59-second quarter miles with 2 minutes of rest in between. By continually achieving 1 mile with 2 minutes of rest in between, by continually achieving 1/4 of his goal, Bannister began to believe. And on May 6, 1954, a triumphant Roger Bannister ran the Miracle Mile in 3 minutes and 59.4 seconds. So Bannister's Miracle Mile is widely used to illustrate the power of positive attitude. However, what is often missed is the subplot about the equal but opposite power of myth. John Landy, who had famously tried to achieve the 4-minute mile for years, he went on to break Bannister's new record in less than 2 months. 2 months. This doesn't appear to be a matter of simple coincidence. What had held Landy back was a myth, and the myth that no one could break the 4-minute mile. Bannister broke the record, and in doing so tore down the psychological wall that was keeping Landy from success. So what I want to say here is that we need people to break those myths, especially in the women ecosystem of entrepreneurs and investors, and especially women entrepreneurs, because when they're going through that tough time, I call it a ditch, when you're not getting funded, you're doubting yourself, your customer acquisition costs are high, nobody's actually paying attention to you. You're doing every single thing that there is to be done. You are anywhere from CEO to janitor. I mean, there's nothing wrong with janitors. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying that you're doing everything, and you doubt yourself so much. So in that ditch, we need a community to support these women, community to tell these women the way it is. And I'm not saying to be all sugary every time, and that's not what I mean by support. What I mean by support is literally taking them by hand and telling them that this is what the life of an entrepreneurship is, and this is what you need to do, this is how you would do it. Sometimes we need to be a therapist, sometimes we need to be a coach, and sometimes we need to be a mentor. And everybody in the global community but everybody's at equal level. So I think by building this community and having this community accessible when you are in that quote-unquote ditch is extremely important and powerful, and that's what's going to make women entrepreneurs successful. And once we have successful women entrepreneurs, what do you think is going to happen? They are going to become angel investors because they know the power of community, they know the power of support, and they know power of capital. And that's what we should all be focusing on, starting with hero funds. I mean, you guys doing a great job. Wingpact is starting out. There's so many of us trying to do something similar to this, and we are making a dent all over the place in this ecosystem. So I think our next challenge is how can we come together as a community and work with each other, support each other, and actually be each other's ladder, right? And climb out of the ditch. Let's do amazing things. Be that ray of sun that pierces through the dark, cloudy sky. That's what we need. I'm sorry, I'm just really passionate about this. I keep going and going and going.
Jagruti, I love to hear your perspective on. Oh, I'm echoing. How do I fix the echo? I'd love to hear your perspective on what needs to be done to mentor and encourage entrepreneurs, and it's so great that you guys are traveling all over the place and seeing all the different ecosystems. I'd love to hear from our other guests from Russia, Dennis and Yelena, a little bit about where you are on your journeys, and also just relating to what Jagruti and Priya have been talking about, how's the mentoring in your ecosystem? How is it for women in your ecosystem? What do you have global support? Do you have local support? And how does your experience compare to some of the things Jagruti and Priya are talking about?
Okay, I can start. So, my name is Lena, and I'm from St. Petersburg. In St. Petersburg, I work in Hardware Accelerator, which is based in ITMO University. Really, we focus more on technological and hardware startups and know more about IT. And what I can say about women startups in Russia, I think there's big problem in Russia. So we don't have any accelerators or some programs which focus mostly on women. For example, my colleagues also was here in Herolabs in autumn from a department, and after this, maybe the passion of Hair Lab's influence on her, and we made some women weekend in ITMO University. Also only for women. It's only for weekend, and it's like some session where women can pitch in and then take some expert feedback, some help, and something like this. But I think that women business in Russia is very low. I think there are some problems about this. Mostly that most women focus on services business, and they don't want to think about technological. And maybe the reason of this that people don't want to see women like a CEO of technological startup. I think so.
CEO.
CEO, yes. And also, what about me, for example? It's also difficult, for example, sometimes to go some meetings, and when they see that it's a young girl and she wants to make something, I don't know, some big company, they're a little bit confused. So it's like some stereotypes that, for example, young women can't make some great technological startup. So it's about stereotypes, and they really exist. Really, I don't know how to do something in Russia, but in this sphere, I think it's difficult. But I think it is a trend now. I know there are a lot of conversation about this topic in Europe now, and a lot of incubators, some co-workers, which also focuses more on women, only on women. But it's not about Russia now. But I think it's the future. Maybe
it's the future.
So, Elena, you are working at a hardware accelerator.
Yes.
I'm sure I heard you correctly. And one of your colleagues came and spent time at Hair Labs.
Yes, she did.
It was because you traveled in Russia, right, Sylvia?
No, I haven't. They wanted me to, but we couldn't work it out with my schedule and stuff like that. But I'm hoping. I love St. Peter. Well, I've heard so much about St. Petersburg. I must go. And so at ITMO University, they have accelerators like the hardware accelerator and other accelerators, and we have a great partnership with the San Diego Diplomacy Council here in San Diego, and that's one way, to get these wonderful scholars and wonderful people from Russia and other places in the world. So Ekaterina came here for about a month, and she learned what it meant to do a female accelerator. I actually took her to an ACA Southwest Regional Conference, so she got to hear about angel investors and female angel investors. Mm-hmm. So she went back to Russia and she did a weekend of just women pitching.
So as a result of her coming to Hair Labs, it's the first time that the accelerator that you work at had programs specifically for women.
Exactly. So Jagruti really hit on it. It's like mentors and role models and opportunities are what we really need to do to bring the global ecosystem up to par, and bring, like, you guys are out there, and then also Russians and other people coming to, let's say, or the leaders of those organizations coming to Silicon Valley or San Diego or wherever other cities are doing incredible, innovative work, and seeing, okay, what works and what doesn't, what can we bring back, and sharing best practices. So that's what we did with Ekaterina, and she's awesome. And we were just talking about it. What else can we do? And Jagruti and Priya, you said it's the small things. It's actually Priya going out and talking to an entrepreneur in the field, really, and empowering her. How they're doing it is awesome. So I'll let Dennis talk a little bit about what he's doing, because he just explained to me what he does, so it's kind of cool.
Hello, I'm Dennis, and I'm from Russia too, and I work in the Center for Social Innovations, and I'm from Saransk. It's not so big city, and here in San Diego I have an internship at the Radio School of Management, and today I have a meeting with Sylvia, because 75% of our residents of our center are women. And in our center, I think we don't have problem with women entrepreneurs because we support social projects, social non-profit organization, and social enterprises.
Dennis just gave me this, and this is one of the ladies. She does. I'm going to put it closer. She does these. What is it?
ethnic souvenirs.
Ethnic souvenirs.
And it's handmade, and we have a lot of kind of social projects in our center. It's like kindergarten for children with disabilities, like social taxi, like hostels for homeless people, and other projects. And we have mentors, women mentors, who CEO and head of business, and they support our residents too.
Mentorship, important.
Yes.
So the business women in the community support your social innovation project
Yes.
through mentorship and whatever resources they can bring.
What?
Yeah, and Jagruti, you want to bring up the comment that you put in the chat. You can't see that, but Jagruti, go ahead, because that's a very great myth to bust.
Yeah, so Dennis, I appreciate you sharing that with us, and I think we need, and when we talk about women entrepreneurs and women investors, we are not saying that we are against men. Okay, what we are saying is we want to collaborate more with men, because without each other, this world is not going to go anywhere. So when we say we need more women entrepreneurs and women investors, we are equally requesting your presence, meaning you representing the entire male gender of the world. We want more people like you who will come out and support. However, I wanted to just make this comment that there is also a myth around women entrepreneurs, that they can only be successful if it's a social impact related startups. I have seen many amazing women, obviously not that many in numbers, but I believe that entrepreneur is an entrepreneur, whether social or whether tech or whether just a handicraft person. Entrepreneur has a fire burning within them. So that fire is equal for all human beings. So I would like to ask, all of us to try to help bust that myth that women entrepreneurs can only be successful if it's a social impact related startups.
I agree, Jagruti, that we're seeing women in all kinds. I mean, I met with a woman entrepreneur this morning who's doing innovation in the shipping industry, so infrastructure is pretty male dominated. So there's women working in all areas. And at the same time, we also see that I have seen statistics for investors. Women investors tend to, by percentages, they're more concerned that their investment in their company does have a positive social impact. So women, I think, are, while there's a myth that women are only in the impact space, women are, I think, bringing the question of impact actually to every area of business, and so that's one of the values.
Yeah.
One thing that it was a recent article that I read that it was a male entrepreneur or investor went to a all-female like startup weekend, and one of the things that he said, and this kind of goes with what we're talking about right now, is that he says, the entrepreneurs that are creating new businesses go for what the need is in the marketplace and first, solving a need, and that even though it's not necessarily social, it's something that a woman first thinks of, and that's something that he saw as a difference of other startup events that he went to that are all male, is that they were like, okay, so what's the marketplace, how much are you going to make, and they might have not remembered to ask, well, what's the need, and are we solving a real need in the marketplace?
Interesting.
So I think at that point, Sylvia, if I can take your comment a little bit further, even though how we, women entrepreneurs are looking at what's the need, I think, including myself, we lack in thinking that big picture. We walk in with a ceiling, and I think what our ceiling should be is it's like a moving target. It's okay to have a ceiling as a something that you want to achieve. But I think thinking big is also one of the things that we need to start doing from step one. Instead of saying, why me, we should be asking, why not me? You know, it's like with that conviction, with that force, why not me? And think big. So understanding the gap and the need is an awesome, awesome start. But how do we cultivate women entrepreneurs to also think big and ask the difficult question, why not me?
Mm. So Jagruti, can you, I know that you've mentored a lot of entrepreneurs. In particular, I know you've done some specific programs, actually probably more than I even realized, in India. And so how do you help, you know, women who are newer at entrepreneurship than you to see the bigger picture, or to ask the bigger questions?
I think my style is always a storytelling style, which kind of sticks to people. Um, and I admit that I don't know everything. So we all are in here to learn together. However, you know, every culture represents a different set of challenges. So as Dennis, and I forget the other person's name, Denison?
Elena.
Elena.
I think.
Talked about some of the challenges that they have in their community and culture. And to look back on all the Indian women entrepreneurs and women in tech I have worked with or worked for or mentored, there is a common thread. And the common thread is the support we get from our community, our society is very important to us as women. So how do we do what we need to do, as well as have people who believe in us and have people who can support us, is becoming more and more important, because women are still considered a weaker sex. So if you read my chapter in Impact with Wings, it starts with the saying that if you are looking at the brute strength, yes, women are weaker than men. However, if you're looking at everything a woman can achieve, women is a far better, more put together vision of what's needed for our world, our planet. Now, I'm not going verbatim. This was a quote by Mahatma Gandhi, but basically what it says that. So the way I mentor is to relate, engage, and go through this model of art, I call it. Now, art is awareness, making them aware of why they have the potential to do something, and then helping them realize the impact that they will make by working on their dream or their idea, or whatever it's in their what they're thinking about as an entrepreneur. And the lot of focus is placed on the last phase, which is transformation. Now, transformation is where you are taking certain skills and making it part of your DNA. And that's where I think we need to have global community, role models, mentorship, how to learn, how to think big, how to ask difficult questions, how to not take no for an answer, how to evaluate your product for a market fit, how do you acquire customers. So all that, like little shreds of mentoring is needed at different times for different women entrepreneurs. So having this global community, I keep going back to that, is going to play a key role in that transformation when we are mentoring women entrepreneurs.
Sylvia, how about you? You do a lot of mentoring. I'm echoing. So do you have how do you, you're an angel investor, you're running all kinds of programs for women entrepreneurs. How do you address that that dynamic around maybe women could think bigger, or maybe women could have more confidence in their own dreams? How do you get at that with women?
That's a great question. One of the things that I find is that just by challenging them in a supportive environment to think big, because sometimes they're working so much on their business, as we know, they're working, day to day on it. They're working in their business, and really focusing them on working on their business and actually vocalizing that and having them stop. I know that seems very elementary, but really that's what one of the things that we focus on in our accelerator is they need to schedule time, they need to sit down, we write it all out. We don't say it's for homework, we do it during the time that we are in the accelerator. That's a very detailed aspect of getting them to think differently. Then secondly, it's more about looking at the forest view. So even just having the conversation about what does a forest view look like, and the forest view of their let's say of their vision might be very different colors of green of a forest. Might be orange, it might be yellow, and it's okay to think multiple hues, because we have a mentor session that we have in our accelerator program, and we have about 80 mentors that we have in our accelerator program. But during that day, we have about 8 to 10 mentors that they do a round robin. And after that day, they're like, I'm going to pivot 1,000 times. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't have to pivot 1,000 times. You have to listen. You have to listen and absorb what these women who are wisdom sources are telling you, and then really think about, okay, how do I implement that? And then that's why we do, after the mentor session, we do a sprint session that is like get down and get things done after that mentor session. So that's like, or operationally how we do it in the accelerator as well, is, grabbing their mind, thinking the mindset, changing their mindset, and then saying, okay, so let's do it actively and do it within our business, so that we can change our social media, or we need to change our communication, or we need to change our product SKUs or the number of products. How do we change all that? So sometimes it's about detailed oriented aspect, and then sometimes it's thinking about big, but when you combine those two is when that magic happens. So I think that goes into what Jagruti was talking about, mentorship, and then the role models. We also have entrepreneurs in residence. So every single week or every other week, we have entrepreneurs who have already done it come in during our lunch session and talk about their entrepreneurial journey. Because that role model, as Peter Thiel says in his 0 to 1 book, is that it's about learning about all of these different examples of successful startups. And you might not be the next Facebook, but you can learn a lot about that story. You have to create your own story and your own journey, but all of those role models play a part into that, the creation of that startup. And then you also asked about mentoring of other angel investors. So, and as Priya also commented early, and I want to hear a little bit more about Priya's journey, is that she's new, and she's starting off on her journey. And coming alongside, she has her mother coming alongside her. She has Wingpact coming alongside of her. I think that's so important with these new angel investors, albeit if you're 20, 30, 40s, 50, 60, 70, is coming together in a community saying, okay, what do you need help with? Because that due diligence process, one person can never even do it. 2 people can't even do it. We have to have a group of collaborators and connections and community so that we can do better due diligence, that we can be smarter investors. And the only way to do that is to create a community. And that new investor is who needs to have that hand holding. And so I come alongside of them. We've built Hera Fund and Hera Angels, and we have we'll have events that help out those women get connected. So Priya, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I'm echoing a little bit. I think that everything you just said is really important, and getting that collective knowledge and collective growth will really be able to catapult us to that next level of engagement, not only with each other, but also within the ecosystem. I think that that's really just a great point to leap off of for the future.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Priya, I'd love to hear more. You were started to talk a little bit about your experience of you in the last month you've traveled in numerous places and you've met entrepreneurs, so many women entrepreneurs in all different kinds of fields, and I'd love to hear more about the variety of entrepreneurs that you met, and if you've had a sense of, were you role modeling for them or were you learning from each other? What was that like?
Yeah, definitely. So the majority of the women entrepreneurs that I met were small business owners who were literally just had like a hole-in-the-wall shop filled with merchandise. And what I gathered was that a lot of that merchandise was sold in bulk by one company because they were all selling the same stuff. It was really all the same stuff, but what set them apart was their business model, whether they, realized that they had a good one or a bad one or not. And another thing that kind of made them a little bit different from each other was also the way that they interacted with their customers. And I think that even though they're, selling the same product, they pretty much have the same end goal in mind, which is to just grow their business and make money, etc. They don't really talk to each other, which I found interesting. They don't communicate. Well, they don't kind of get together and say, what can we do? What troubles are you having? Like we do in Silicon Valley, where I can call my former boss or a former colleague and say, hey, we're working on almost the same thing. These are the problems I'm having. What do you suggest? So I thought that was one really important difference, is that even though there's community support for things like raising money for your kids to go to school and all that kind of stuff, there's really no community support for women leaning on each other for business development and that kind of thing, which I found really interesting. That's like one of the main differences, because I would have thought going into it that it was more of a community aspect, which is not the case.
So, and did you see that dynamic in a lot of different countries that you visited?
Yeah, it was actually one of the main constants that I saw, no matter if I went to, for example, a night market, or it was just a couple stalls on the road, or wherever I might have happened onto these businesses. It was pretty much standard.
Yeah, interesting. So, were you talking with them about their businesses, or?
Yeah,
was
we
there
were.
Some exchange going on between you and the women you were visiting?
Yeah, so I met this one woman in Vietnam who basically, it was like a 3-foot in width alley, and she had purses lined up the entire side of the alley, and it was totally dark, so you basically just like walk into this tiny alley and pick out your merchandise and pay, so it wasn't really a store. And we got to talking, and she was saying that she's worked here for 10 years and 10 or 12 years, and she was saying that this is mainly her only source of income. She has 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl, she's trying to put through school, and right next to her and the street over from that, there are people selling like the same merchandise. And I was just asking her, how is it possible that you can make enough money, because you have so many competitors selling the same things all around you, and not only just like in these next streets, but it's basically the same merchandise at the same or similar prices in like the neighboring 4 or 5 countries. So how are you making this work for you? And she basically just said like she doesn't know. She just, whenever tourists walk by, she's like, hey, come into my store, but there's, and then we got to talking, and she was saying that one of her cousins also had a similar store in a city over, but they, never really talked about how they run their business or how they can improve and stuff like that. And I think that that's what we were kind of talking about earlier, is that, you go in with an idea and of, the psychological barrier, like this is how much money I can make in one day, and you kind of just stick to it. And if it works, it works. If it sends your kids to school, that's great. But there's no real, desire to make that even more because there's no realization that it's even possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Wow. Yeah, I'm just seeing you, we've been talking about what you've learned from your mom, Jagruti, but I'm also seeing you as coming up as starting to be a role model for other women, and it's this whole global network that's happening, and it's pretty exciting, actually.
Sign her up, Suzanne. Say her mom.
What did you say?
I said sign her up, says her mom.
Yeah. So, Jagruti, do you have a comparison with how you've mentored your daughters in entrepreneurship and investing compared to how you mentor women globally? Is it the same basic process, or it's just interesting to have this very local example and then these huge global examples happening simultaneously?
Yeah, they say it's always easier to talk to somebody else's kid because the other kid listens to you more. Listening to and obeying is not important to me. What's important to me is awareness. So I constantly talk to them about who I met, what I did, what are my struggles, and I've been a single mom, as you know, for the last 10 years, right? Since they were 9 and 12. Mm-hmm. So they were actually at many points in my last 10 years were the only people I could talk to because there was no other adult. So they got to hear a lot about how mom's work is, what are the challenges, etc., etc. And last 5 years, when I really dug into women in tech, where in Anita Borg Institute, where I worked with you, Suzanne, I started to take those conversations at a different level because I didn't know myself, even though I had experienced different, discrimination different times in my life. I thought I was the only one. And when hearing that globally, not only in US, but also in India from women in tech, not necessarily discriminational, but the limitation of how not only society puts on us, but how we put on ourselves. So that kind of changed some of my conversations at home. So I would say the big difference in mentoring others versus my own daughters is with my own daughters, it kind of never stopped, but it was more in a conversation format. Mm-hmm. With the others, I knew I had a time limit, and I always thought about what can I give them to walk away with that it will stick to them. It'll bring a twinkle in their eye. It will give them, it'll fire their fire even more in their heart about whatever they're dreaming of. And I always told them this quote, and I don't know exactly how it goes or who said it, but it says, dreams are not what keeps you up at night. Dreams are something that's what keeps you up during the day because you are that dedicated to making it work. Anyway, so I'm a big time into, relating with stories and quotes, and I think that's what sticks to people. But main difference is constant conversations, whether they're listening to me or not. And in my case, I got lucky that they listened to most of it and gave feedback. But I think that conversation needs to keep going, and it doesn't have to start when kids are, when our children or nieces, nephews, or friends, a young generation is at a certain point in their life, like college. I think this needs to start as early as possible. I mean, if we expose our kids to all this violence on TV, why not expose them to good things as well, like challenges and limitations that world is putting on us, and how do we go about, maybe working towards making yourself better so you can actually pay it forward. So I think the conversation needs to keep going, and earlier the better.
Jagruti, it's so interesting, and I just realized I want to ask Sylvia the same question because you're a mom too, Sylvia, and we've been talking in this call about how you mentor your women at your accelerator and your local San Diego investors, and plus you're doing global mentoring with your connections in Russia, and I know you also have connections in Baja and other places in Latin America. So, you know, I know a lot about that, but do you also, you know, sneak these ideas into your mothering with your own kids? And what's that like? Oh, you're mute.
Yes. So interesting that you asked that. We always watch Shark Tank. I know it's kind of cliche, but we watch Shark Tank, and my kids always ask me, "What would you do?" And I really love those conversations because you know, sometimes the valuation comes up, and now they know what valuation is, and even those definitions. I mean, my kids are 10, 13, and 17, so we really can't go into too much conversation. But you know, valuation. What does profit mean? Why would you take equity, and why would you not? You know, what's a convertible note? We don't really go through like the details of it, but really, what does all that mean? So we do watch Shark Tank, and we have those conversations in front of the TV instead of watching, you know, a show on Nickelodeon or something like that. So kind of funny on that aspect, but also my kids as the work-life integration instead of balance, because I'm not balanced at all. But the integration is that I try to have them come to my events whenever we have a pitch session or anything like that, because they love seeing things. They love the event, and I sneak in conversations about what that pitch was about, or did you like what she pitched about, and have them talk to me about their experience with that pitch event, or what they thought about it. And then thirdly, I have, whenever I consider startups, like one of them was a skateboard, a new skateboard, not electronic, but self-propulsion skateboard. I brought my son in. And I said, look, if we need to have a conversation further than the first one, I would like to have my son in the room. It never happened because the startup never followed up, and we can go on about follow-up and startups. But it was interesting because that kind of allowed me to say, hey, I need to bring my son in to see if he would even like it. And when I came home and I talked to him about this first meeting I had, he goes, oh, there's tons of them out there, Mom, whatever, you don't even know this. So it's interesting how I bring in their expertise. I've had you know, kids apps and kids products. I bring them home so my daughter can test them, basically, and we talk about what that looks like. So it's, as you said, Jagruti, it's about conversations. So that's a huge differentiator between, let's say, something we happen at the house and family, is conversations, and how I mentor other people in the community. It's still conversations. It's just they're not at my dinner table. I wish they were, because I'm Latina and Italian. So I do have that very much of a warm feel whenever I do meet with somebody, because I want them to feel like they're supported. And I will ask them very hard questions, but in a supportive environment. So I think that warmthness, no matter if it's family or not, I always mindfully have that in the conversations with any kind of mentor or startup.
That's great to hear. You know, for myself, I was home with my kids well, I was an engineer at Apple, so, you know, not in a startup mode at all, and I was home with my kids for a long time, and so my kids now are about to turn 13 and 20, and it's only recently that I've been involved in this investing environment and that sort of thing. And I was at running a workshop on Friday for women to talk about money and try and open up some of the silence around that, you know. And the one woman there had this, like, you know, bam, 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 3 items she always taught her kids about money, and I was kind of like, I have no idea what I taught my kids about money or entrepreneurship or business or anything like that. So it's really interesting to hear yours and Jagruti's perspective on that. And I'm personally enjoying this. I'm just seeing all the levels. It's like home, community, globe, you know, and how we as women are weaving that all together and having impact on all the levels. I think it's really exciting and brings a lot of hope.
And I think one word Sylvia said, integration.
Mm-hmm.
It is the key for, you know, community, dinner table, home, school, work. It's no longer just work-life integration. You know, it is a lot of that, but life has so much other stuff. Life has dinner table, life has friends, life has schools, right? I think Sylvia hit it on the nail. Is integration is, you know, I think that's where women bring a lot of value too, because we see everything connecting to each other. It's no longer, for us, it's not separate. It's how we connect things, connect with each other to move forward in a positive direction.
I think that's a really interesting topic. I noticed in your chat this idea of having a conversation on the topic of thinking big. Maybe we could have another one of our future hangouts on that topic, and it could definitely integrate investors and entrepreneurs. And then I'm just wondering if this question of integration, I think it's a pivotal concept, because it's really how we do business, right? How do we create business culture for women, by women? And I'm seeing this integration thing happening more and more, and it might be a good area to kind of almost share best practices among entrepreneurs and investors for running their businesses and running their lives in an integrated fashion. So,
because I think that's one thing that comes up that I've learned as being an investor, and you hit it, Suzanne, I just had a comment on it, is that being an active investor, like we are, and really paying attention to our startups and really wanting them to succeed as much as possible, that is a full-time job. Yeah. And, and that's one thing that we have to also start communicating amongst these new female angel investors, is that we can learn from each other, because we are actively investing in these startups, and we want to be actively investing in these startups. And being better equipped means that we collaborate with each other and we understand what each other do, and that integration of, we're not a mom, we are also an investor, and we are also a businesswoman, and using those best practices between all those segments is very important to be as successful as we can be.
Yeah, I think and we as women are creating new business culture around all that, just to make it work for us. So, yay! Any last comments? So we have 3 minutes. You want to put in your final plug, Sylvia, for things?
Yeah, sure. So again, this is an incredible collaboration between WingPact and Hera Fund. It's been like ecstatically awesome to have this collaboration. But the bigger collaboration, this actually started from a conversation and a question at the Hera Venture Summit last year. And the conversation and the question was, let's continue the conversation, basically. Let's continue the questions and continue the collaboration and the connection. And so we started the Google Hangout. So as it is a year later, almost, September 17th is our Hera Venture Summit, and that our theme is building bridges between female funders and female founders. So we have a blended session in the morning where female founders and female funders are in the same room talking about the innovation ecosystem. What does it mean to be a woman investor? What does it mean to be a woman entrepreneur? How can we leverage the successes that all of us have had? How do we partner up with each other? How do we collaborate? And in the afternoon, we have separate segments, separate tracks for angel investors, and a separate track for entrepreneurs, and around access to capital. And what does capital mean? Our keynote is Trish Costello from, yes, yay, from Portfolio, who is a force to be reckoned with on changing the landscape for female angel investors, and how do we fund the next generation of female entrepreneurs. So we're really excited. September 17th, 2016 in San Diego, California.
We'll be there.
Great. Well, I
actually had Jagruti wanted to kind of talk a little bit about her next steps and how you can connect better with Jagruti and what she's planning to do.
Yes, thank you, Sylvia. Again, I'm going to put a disclaimer first. This is all work of progress, and we are in a research stage, but we would love to hear from anybody to help us make this more concrete. So there are two areas that we are working on. We are thinking about, we're working towards, actually not thinking, but we're working towards putting a angel investment boot camp or workshop for women online. And that's one thing that we are looking at, and we're mainly going to be focusing on immigrant women, first-generation women in the United States, as well as women investors and entrepreneurs from emerging countries. And the second one that I am in the research phase is to create a pilot program with Indian women in the US pre-accelerator, as well as Indian women in India pre-accelerator. So this will be a 6 weeks program, 15 women each in the US as well as India. And after 6 weeks, they will get to have a kind of an exchange program, 2 weeks in each country. So US being a developed country and India being an emerging country, I believe that both set of women entrepreneurs would learn how to be in an emerging country and in a developed country. So those are the two projects that I am in progress of researching and putting together. And the first one is with WingPact, and the second one is I am kind of exploring on my own. You can connect with me, Jagruti Bhikha, on LinkedIn, Jagruti, and my last name is B as a boy, Hikha. I look forward to everything, and thank you, Suzanne, for actually recommending this. It was Suzanne's idea to bring mother-daughter together. I loved it. And Sylvia for providing a platform, and I believe we have a lot more things we can do together, and I'm looking forward for that.
You're muted, Sylvia.
And Suzanne, also your wonderful book that I can't wait to get, so go ahead.
Well, yeah, our book, as you all know, but maybe our listeners haven't heard about it yet, it's called Impact with Wings. If you search on Amazon under Impact with Wings, subtitled Stories to Inspire and Mobilize Women Angel Investors and Entrepreneurs. It's a historic book. It's the first book by women for women about angel investing, so we hope you check it out.
It's a great book. I can't wait to read it from cover to cover, and so we're excited. So this is the end of the broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. It's just this is about conversations, and we will be posting what our next conversation would be. I feel, and we're hoping that it will be a like Priya is a new angel investor, and what her journey looks like at the beginning. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great day. Bye.